Going over to the Cultural Report podcast, you have Matt Walsh reacting to Donald Trump's statement on Canada backing Palestine, which might result in, well, maybe the U.S. cancels their trade agreement with Canada. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Matt Walsh. So he's responding to Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump said, quote, well, I suppose I should try his accent. It might be the worst Trump impression you hear all year, but the attempt will be made. Well, Canada just announced its backing of statehood for Palestine or Palestine. This will make it very hard to make a trade deal with Canada. Oh, Canada. I mean, yeah, that's probably the worst Trump impression you heard all year, but the attempt nevertheless was made. Now, Matt Walsh responded saying, quote, this is ridiculous. If a trade deal with Canada is beneficial to the American people, then it should go forward regardless of Canada's stance on Palestine. The benefit of the American people should be the guiding principle here. And I was going to say, how many more minutes is Matt Walsh going to be employed by the Daily Wire? Again, he is the biggest contrarian of the Daily Wire in terms of the deviation from their support from countries such as Israel. Matt Walsh is mostly an isolationist in terms of the policy you're allowed to have at Daily Wire. That's as far as you can go. As we've seen, a lot of people consider that's a big contributing factor of why Candace Owens no longer works there. He is very much America first. And again, Canada, which I pejoratively mispronounce as a slight to the rudimentary conquered country, again, it's one of those things where we have some fair business relations with Canada. I usually make jokes about them because, well, again, totalitarian government, they're not allowed to own guns barely. They can't defend themselves with firearms. They're taxed to all hell. They have no rights. But they are all weird, annoying neighbors. And we have some business relations with them. I consistently joke that, the Dodge Challenger, the previous generation, was great Canadian muscle. Same with the Chevrolet Camaro. Spoiler, it's, I guess, well, probably not a well-known pun, so it doesn't probably land well, but those vehicles are actually made in Canada. I believe for about 20 to 30 years, the Camaro was made in Canada, also known as Canada. It wasn't until like the actual last year of the generation Camaro that they canceled now was made in Michigan. But for decades, I believe even the 2002, I'm not the best with the generations of the Camaro, truth be told. But again, there are a lot of automobiles, especially that are made in Canada. Even I believe some Hondas, believe it or not, which is kind of sad, but a reality. And we do things, we buy stuff from them, like those cars. They buy some stuff from us. I would argue they've gotten the better end of the deal for years. But again, there's some business relations with Canada, even though they've imported so many people, they're becoming a conquered weak country. And Canada is very weird that Canada is importing a lot of Islamic, Muslim, different people, Middle Easterners into their country, which I suspect is a contributing factor of why they're saying maybe they're backing a statehood of Palestine. If I were to guess why the leaders in Canada want that or they're pushing for it, it's because their people, which they imported in masses, it's because there's some support around that. And Donald Trump has very much been in support of Israel. Many politicians have been for decades in the United States, which you could argue we do a lot of business with Israel. I mean, they are one of the largest manufacturers of cybersecurity software on the planet and some military hardware. The Elbit Systems being headquartered in Israel, having a U.S. headquarters in Fort Worth, Texas. That's known for making the headset for the F-35 Lightning II, or the helmet that has very impressive graphical technologies. One of the coolest things is when you look at the helmet, if you look at your feet, you actually see the ground beneath you, not your actual feet, because of the projection and the cameras. It's fascinating technology. But then since, well, you could also argue we give them over $3 billion a year in aid. So again, I can understand Donald Trump's trying justification with that in terms of business deals. But again, canceling trade with Canada would hurt some Americans as well. Because again, Canadians buy from us. I wish we could import more freedom in that country, but I guess we could probably take over Canada in one day if we were honest. But I mean, if we were to stop trading with Canada for a while, that would hurt American manufacturers. That hurt American software companies. There are still a fair amount of things that we export. We're not just a services economy in the United States. We're one of the largest, most successful software manufacturers on the planet. So I have pretty good automotive manufacturing, and it's getting better and better. And again, this would hurt some folks. Now, maybe Trump, of course, he's known for doing the I'm doing the art of the deal. Didn't read my stupid book. It was about fixing that park in New York City, which it was a pretty good book. I try to read as much as possible, usually half hour a day. I like that book, but I was a little disappointed. I thought it'd be more business oriented. If you go into that book, knowing that it's more about Donald Trump's life and it's kind of almost like a biography, you'll like it more because it'll meet your expectations. Again, I think it's a good book. It's just sold to me wrong or wasn't accurate. But nevertheless, maybe this is the art of the deal where you're saying, Canada, stop doing this and we'll resume, we'll give you that deal. again, Donald Trump is very well known for having those types of, those types of trading tactics or negotiating tactics, more accurately put. But yeah, I think this would actually hurt a lot of Americans. Now, this actually went pretty viral. Got 1.2 million views and 32,000 likes. And again, I do wonder how long Matt Walsh will be employed by Daily Wire. And again, I think Matt Walsh has a lot of great takes. And hashtag sweet baby gang. But yes, an instance where, again, this is one of those things where this is very much not in line with the corporate culture and the general newspeak of, Ben Shapiro, Andrew Klavan, Michael Knowles. Again, some of those guys make good points. This is one of those topics that were, I almost do fear, and I think Matt Walsh is big enough. I guess this is kind of extrapolating this topic a little bit, going a little bit ADHD. I think Matt Walsh has enough of a following that he could be very successful, independent, very similar to Tucker Carlson. Where Tucker Carlson actually, I think he's actually more popular, well respected, and better known now. And I think he's actually making perhaps even a better living, fiscally speaking, being completely independent. I think of all Daily Wire reporters, and look at Ben Shapiro. Well, Ben Shapiro's not going to leave; he's co-founder of the company. I mean, you got Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, Matt Walsh, Reagan Conrad, for the three people who watch the comment section still. I shouldn't laugh too much because their views are still greater than mine, but still, I do wonder how much longer Matt Walsh will be employed at the Daily Wire. Now, going down to the comments of the video, the first one comes to us thanks to Candace Owens saying, "America second, Matt." Now you have a contrarian statement, which again, life is more interesting, which Laura Loomer, I wish I knew her accent because she wrote a book. Again, this is one of those popular or most liked responses, so I'm going to read it in full and try not to stutter too much. Which again is a friendly reminder to click that subscribe button. When I first started the show, I spoke faster than Ben Shapiro and more awkwardly than Joe Biden trying to climb upstairs. But as I slowly but surely gained more subscribers, I've gotten better at speaking. A lot of people in the comment section of my videos will say, it's barely anything at all, though I would argue, statistically speaking, an improvement. So don't forget to tell your friends and tell your enemies too about the show. Your enemies might be so enamored and impressed by your preference and material, they might then become your friends and you can bond over the topping show. Or they find it so viscerally disgusting and visually disgusting that the enemies then get even angrier at you. It becomes a physical altercation. So perhaps I shouldn't recommend that. But in all seriousness, your friends and your enemies, if anything, you'll have an interesting story out of it. And again, click the subscribe button. Greatly appreciate it. Now, this is from Laura Loomer. Now, Laura Loomer says, quote, "Canada is our neighbor to the northern border." That is true. Thank you for letting me know, Laura. But I'll read the rest seriously. She says, quote, "We don't need these so-called conservatives like Matt Walsh to understand that Canada's position on the Palestine state directly correlates to Canada's immigration policies that have allowed for mass Islamic migration into Canada, which turned into mass illegal migration into the U.S. and by many of these unsavory Islamic individuals. Canada allowing themselves to be a safe haven for Islamists who want Hamas to have their own state negatively impacts the U.S. national security, which has consequences as it relates to our trade relations with Canada. Are people forgetting that one of the main reasons why President Trump implemented his tariffs was to punish countries for the facilitation of the invasion and the flow of fentanyl in the United States? The fentanyl war on the U.S. is financed out of Toronto. Canada won't say no to Islamic immigration, even with the rise of Islamic terror in Canada, because Muslims have obtained political power in Canada where you can be jailed for speaking the truth about Islam. The only reason why Canada has to even entertain the idea of a Palestine statehood is because they allowed themselves to be invaded by Muslims who have conquered Canada, and now those Muslim invaders have political power in Canada. That's the same reason why the UK and France are caving to the idea of a Palestinian state. France and the UK have been destroyed by Islamic immigration. President Trump has even said it himself last week when he was in the UK. We aren't going to allow Muslims to conquer the US. Once they conquer Israel, it's game over for the West. It's not even hard for you to understand if you're not a total moron. And that got 5.5 thousand likes, which, again, she has a good point in terms of the mass migration. You've seen what happens to the UK. Things have gotten great over there. That's dark humor because people are being taken advantage physically in terms of the women over there in the worst possible way, some of the kids as well. And if you tweet about it over there, you're arrested because they arrest you for memes, or I think it's funny to call them memes, as we have more and more countries being conquered. So yeah, she does bring up some interesting points. And I mean, Canada was so weak, and they allowed such mass migration, they have nowhere to put them. And they're already, talk about how much sad Canadians are abused. They have no rights. They're taxed to all hell. And I feel bad for the people who are, there's some conservatives living in Canada. I wish they would, I actually hope they escape and come to the U.S. legally. I mean, you got freedom right there. And yet, you have places like Minnesota, which I also pejoratively mispronounce on purpose as a slight to that conquered weak state, they've had a lot of Islams, like a lot of Somalians all imported to Minneapolis, so much so that they actually changed their state flag to resemble a rudimentary image of Somalia. Now, going back to the main comment section, you have I swear I don't try to butcher names on purpose all the time. Arquiel Bloss says they work for Israel first, gained 26 likes. Barefoot Pregnant says, quote, you're too reasonable, Matt, gained 14 likes. Ben Fremont says, quote, 55 Americans slaughtered, buried alive, tortured, and taken hostage by the Palestinians cult of death. So F yeah, I care, gained 1.7 thousand likes. First Word says, don't you get that Trump's trade deals are more than trade deals? They're get your ass in line or else deals, getting 182 likes, which, I mean, politically speaking, that is a very common tactic in terms of, most politicians don't start guns blazing with physical altercations or, using military force. Yeah, I understand that, part of that is negotiating. Sometimes it doesn't work, though. I mean, one of the most comical things would be like, I think, probably North Korea, where, economically we cut them off for decades. It's become a crappier and crappier country, but the people have still not yet revolted and thrown over communism. I hope they do someday. Mag 1775. Interestingly enough, he has a picture of I think it's a 1911. Well, of course. I'll give him a follow. He says, quote, Matt, buddy, this isn't about maple syrup. It's about drawing the line. You don't cut deals with countries backing terror states, getting 347 likes. Fair point. Roscoe Smith. Oh, no. Roman numerals, my ultimate enemy. Well, no. Speaking without stuttering is my ultimate enemy. But in all seriousness, without the Rocky movies, where would we be in the Super Bowl when it comes to knowing Roman numerals in the United States? But he says, quote, I finally disagree with Matt Walsh. There are the globalists. Oh, no. He says globalists. I immediately want to talk like Alex Jones. I shall. Won't be a good impression, but the attempt will be made. Ross Smith says, I finally disagree with Matt Walsh. There are these globalist leaders that are waiting for Trump term to end so they can punch their godless nonsense on the West. I applaud Trump for standing up to these godless, globalist, Democrat, socialist agenda every step of the way. Getting 457 likes. Partially because of my Alex Jones impression. Well, not really, but the attempt was made. And he is, I was going to say, the concerning thing about Alex Jones, which I think he's a really good reporter, it is interesting how often he is right. I definitely owe a lot of money to the Alex Jones is right jar. You also have American Sovereign saying, quote, tell that to your boss who pushes this all day long, Matt, getting 491 likes. Frank Vivek, commentary count, says, quote, why does the U.S. feel compelled to take political stance on one nation recognizing another? Are we the United States of America, United States of Israel? Because at this point, the distinction is starting to blur and reeks of compromised priorities, getting 595 likes. Gabe K says, our country is being run by Israel, getting 224 likes. Wow, Devin Stack got 3.4 thousand likes for this. Now he says, quote, it's not ridiculous when you understand Jews control America and to be overthrown before they extract all of our wealth like vampires. Whoa. Extreme. Again, but 3.4 thousand likes. This video is now pulled off YouTube. I'm partially kidding. We'll see. That's why you should always watch on Rumble, where all my videos are always there. Especially when I talk about things that come in vials. Those always get pulled off the YouTube. Going down more and more. Fake Vivek parody account says, Shapiro, when he sees Matt in the office after this post. You have the meme of Dokes from Dexter. And instead of looking at Dexter, he's looking at that creep Pedro Pascal. And I got 371 likes. Though, again, they're in different states. So I don't think they'll see each other in the office unless they're traveling. Because, again, Ben Shapiro's at the Florida office, and Matt Walsh is famously in the U.S. headquarters for the Daily Wire, which is Nashville, Tennessee. GG says, quote, respectively, your response shows you have absolutely no understanding of what's going on. 0. Getting 91 likes. No responses. Let's see here. Dave says... the whole point is creating a terrorist state, he says, quote, the whole point is that creating a terrorist state of Palestine is not beneficial to the United States, so Trump is exercising economic leverage to stop it. I'm sure that you agree that the U.S. shouldn't use military force unless absolutely necessary, so Trump uses economic leverage to achieve foreign policy goals. That's his specialty, unquote, getting 392 likes, which, historically speaking, that is one of Trump's most, popular tools that he uses. And we'll see. Again, there seems to be a lot of pushback against this. And it's been a while since we had, I guess, another statehood officially created. I don't know. How much would it hurt our economy in the short term or long term if we actually did break ties with Canada? Again, I do think Trump is using this as a leverage. I don't think he's actually, because again, it's not like it would destroy the U.S. economy, but it would have an impact. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so you click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, and comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.